Hey, we have people that like what we do so much that they give us their hard-earned money.
We really, truly do, Kerry. It's kind of an honor, isn't it?
It is. It's a big honor, actually. I mean, that's a huge deal that, hey, we like these guys every week, and here's some money to prove it.
I know. It really is kind of shocking to me that we've still got people that really care about what we do this much to contribute their hard-earned money to it, which we understand how hard-earned money is to come by these days. So we really, really appreciate it. Let's get into our list of sponsors for the show to start things off. Kerry, you ready for that?
Yeah, and that's done at patreon.com/the final lap.
Join in on the revolution. Join in on the giving fun. We've got Devin over there at the Only Mattress Giant level tier. Thank you, Devin. We appreciate you. We've got Louisville Max as well. Louisville Max is our resident fantasy player up there with Rowdy Dragon. They battle it out for the championship pretty much year in and year out. So cool to see Louisville Max there. Thank you, Louisville Max. We've got David Letchworth as well. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the longest tenured sponsor of the show, Joe Bike. Thank you all, seriously, from the bottom of our hearts. And let's get into this show. Kerry Murphy.
This is the Final Lap Weekly, a podcast where a couple of guys talk about all things NASCAR. My name is Kerry Murphy. I'm a longtime host of all things The Final Lap. And our co-host is Toby Christie, founder and editor-in-chief at TobyChristieCom and RacingAmerica.com.
Yes. You know, one job, one editor-in-chief role wasn't enough. Had to add a second one.
Exactly. That's why there was a long pause in there. You need the long pause.
Definitely. I appreciate it. So that's good. What do we have on the docket today, Kerry?
Oh, I don't know. A little race called Darlington.
Yeah, it was fun, by the way. A lot of people showed up. Grandstands were sold out. Camping was sold out. It was very, very, very like hot out there at Darlington.
You were there, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Met up with some fans. It was really cool to see. Went to the tweet up and good times. Really, really good times.
That's good to hear. I mean, the vibe was it playoff like?
Oh, the vibes were great. The fans were pretty electric. The like I said, the crowd was completely packed. It was awesome, and I feel like the race was actually pretty good. I think there was enough weird, controversial moments towards the end that it kind of made up for the lack of passing for the lead throughout the race, even though the leader never really got super far out.
Right.
So I think there was enough there to make this a pretty good race, and I think Gluck's pole turned out to be a good race, so that's good.
That is good. That is good because there's been some snoozers lately. So
yes, we don't want snoozers.
By the way, we had Rowdy Dragon on live on we call it live, but it wasn't pre-recorded. We were interacting with each other, so I'm going to call it live. And my scenario played out perfectly. I didn't plan that, nothing. But my Martin Truex Jr. scenario, he unloaded terribly, was awful, and turned out I'm glad I didn't pick him.
Yeah, he was pretty frustrated by it too on the radio throughout the entire race. He wasn't very happy about it at all. I also kind of had a scenario playing out as well. I had picked Erik Jones, which Rowdy was telling me was probably not a smart choice.
Right.
And he was running like second there for a little bit, and I was like, okay, we might get an Erik Jones win here. So it didn't quite happen, but it was still cool to see him put in another pretty good performance.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny how I think I just came up with that out of the top of my head. I didn't, he was big on Martin Truex. I'm like, well, what if he's terrible?
Sure enough, the one thing you wouldn't ever expect with Martin Truex Jr. at Darlington, because usually if he finishes bad, he at least was dominating the race before something weird happened at Darlington. But yeah, they just did not have it this time around.
Well, and I see where Rowdy was going with the whole thing. I mean, he has been amazing. So it only makes sense that he should be on your list for fantasy racing. So
well, yeah, he's been amazing all year. He's good at Darlington, and that team has really come on strong in the last few months. So you would think that they had it pretty much in the bag, but it was not there.
Well, shall we run this thing down 10-1?
Let's do it the way we always do it.
Well, we've got Erik Jones there at number 10.
Yeah, and I mean, a solid run, a much-needed good run, and they're going into a place where they were pretty strong earlier in the year, Kansas. So maybe, just maybe, Legacy Motor Club can sneak out a win before the year's over.
Turns out old Kerry and Toby do know a few things about this sport.
These old dogs got a couple tricks up their sleeves every now and again.
You got Ryan Blaney there at number 9.
Yeah, and, not a great run, but compared to his past at Darlington, this is kind of those places where you circle it in the first round and go, Blaney could be a first-round exit if his past success or lack of success holds true at Darlington. Solid top 10, I think he'll take it.
Yeah, for sure. Chase Elliott, just still kind of out to lunch. I mean, 8th place isn't bad, but it's not Chase Elliott.
8th place isn't bad, but we didn't really hear about him all race long. Even with him having a chance at the Owner Championship, TV usually would take any chance they could to talk about Chase Elliott in that case. And if we didn't hear about him, that means probably wasn't contending very well throughout the entire race, but did end up with a top 10, and that does help their championship hopes for the Owner's title.
Bubba Wallace, who was on everybody's list to be out in round 1, finished 7th.
Yeah, and I don't know why people are picking him to be out in the first round. I get he hasn't won yet this year. I get that he was the guy that had to point his way in, and it came down to Daytona. But he's so good at Darlington, so good at Kansas. I mean, the 45 car won both races there last year.
Yeah, you mentioned that last week. So
yeah, so there's that, and then he's really, really good at Bristol too. So I don't see him being out. There's no way.
There you go. You heard it here first. There is no way.
No chance, guys. No chance.
Brad Keselowski there at number 6 in his number 6.
This RFK team, man, they have got it figured out. They are rocking and they are rolling, even on the least incredible performance out of the last 2 months for them. Brad Keselowski finishes 6th. I mean, they've just got it going right now. It feels like nothing they do right now at this point can be wrong. And
good timing too.
Yeah, they have really they've hit it at the exact right time, and they are a team that I'd be scared of if I were the rest of these guys.
And Ross Chastain at number 5, we haven't heard about him like most of the year.
No, and so it was a complete flip of Darlington last time. So last time in Darlington, he was really good, led a lot of laps, and made a boneheaded move towards the end, crashed himself and Kyle Larson out of the race. This time around, Carr was out to lunch all race long. He didn't force anything. He just kind of let the race come to him. Everybody else started falling by the wayside, and when the checkered flag flew, somehow Ross Chastain and that number 1 team had gotten the car good enough to finish 5th. Those are the performances we need to start seeing out of this guy. And I think if you start seeing a few more of these, even though it looks like they don't have the speed, they might start believing in themselves enough to get these good finishes on bad days.
If you use one of your Byrons, you're probably doing the happy dance because he finished 4th.
Yeah, and this is another thing where he started so far back, and early in the race he wasn't making much headway. I think at the end of stage 1 he was still like 20th or something. And I go, man, that's
right.
Not good. This is a bad start for William Byron. But no, he came back, came on strong in the second half of this race, as Hendrick teams usually do. They keep up with the changing track conditions as we go from day to night, and that 24 car came to life in the second half.
More RFK here at number 3, Chris Buescher. Man, I mean, if he doesn't win, he's still top 5.
These guys are on fire, literally and figuratively, because they're putting in good performances on the track. They've won 3 out of the last 6 races. And they've both caught on fire the last 2 races, literally on track in the pits. This time it was Chris Buescher catching on fire on his pit stop towards the end of the race, but they kept the pit stop going, lost no positions on pit road, got going, and the fire went out luckily for them. And another solid 3rd place finish. He was in the mix for the win. I mean, this is just incredible, Kerry. We have seen Chris Buescher go from a guy that nobody expected to make the playoffs to now winning 3 races and looking like a championship favorite. A bona fide championship favorite. I mean, a 3rd place finish at Darlington. You got to win at Michigan. You got to win at Richmond. You've got to win at Daytona. I mean, those are 3 different tracks. You've got this now. I mean, what more can you say about these guys?
He could get it done. At number 2, you got Tyler Reddick, who did pretty well this particular race.
He did, and he was kind of one of those guys that probably could have won this thing. Led 90 laps on the day, second only to Denny Hamlin, who had a issue on pit road that took him out of the running of this thing, but. Tyler Reddick was right up in there in the mix, although he is the guy that led to the unfortunate demise of Kevin Harvick. Right as Harvick was going to pit road, Tyler Reddick decided to come to a dead stop in front of Ryan Newman while leading the race, and it caused Ryan Newman to spin out, and Harvick got trapped on a closed pit road. They decided to make a pit stop, which sent them to the end of the field, and that ruined their shot at a chance to win this race. And Tyler Reddick kept going and had a shot there towards the end in these closing laps, but kept pounding the wall a little bit. Couldn't quite get it done, but another solid effort for him.
Didn't even know Ryan Newman was in the race, so lucky for him.
You are not the only one who said that. I was hearing a lot of people in the media center saying that too. And, I knew he was in. This is kind of one of those couple tracks that he likes to run, and it was cool to see him in there, and cool to see that he actually avoided contact. I mean, that was actually a pretty skillful move. Had it been somebody else in that 51, I don't know if they missed Reddick there.
Yeah. Before we get to the winner, let's talk about the guy who won both stages, led a crap ton of laps, 177 on the day, comes into the pits while leading with a loose wheel, or so he said, but the crew reported back there wasn't a loose wheel. So, and then he said it was loose.
And I will say, so I was in the scrum waiting on him after the race, and he was talking with his crew chief, Chris
Denny
Gabehart,
Hamlin, by the way. I don't think I mentioned his name.
Yeah, Denny Hamlin. So he was talking to his crew chief, Chris Gabehart, and the pit crew afterwards, and he is pretty sure it was loose.
Right, but usually there's a little like egg-shaped oval inside the wheel.
Well, typically, and that was with the 5-lug wheel. We don't really have any telltale signs anymore on the new one, unless the end part of the back side of the wheel is kind of worn out. But
right, but doesn't it kind of really lock in?
It does. I mean, so it's really kind of hard to tell.
We've seen either it's on or it's not, because it falls off if it's not.
Yeah, usually it is. Now, Denny was saying he was having a hard time holding on to it. He knew something had to be wrong there, and that he was going to crash if he stayed out any longer. So even if it wasn't a loose wheel, something was obviously not right. But he's pretty sure it was loose wheel from his side of things.
Do they run interliners there? Could it have been equalized or anything like that?
I don't think so. No, I think
okay.
that there wasn't really a chance for that to be the case. And they had just pitted, so I don't know.
Weird.
Aside from it being a loose wheel, I don't know what else it could have been.
All right, just checking. All right, let's get to victory lane. Kyle Larson grabs yet another win on the season, immediately launches himself into the next round of the playoffs. He led 55 laps on the day. Of course, Denny Hamlin led the most at 177. Man, Kyle Larson does it again. Hendrick Motorsports on the radar.
Yeah, they loaded him into the can. They now shot him to the round of 12. He's there, ready to roll. And and for Larson, this is his first win at Darlington, incredibly, because he is so good there. It's so wild that he hadn't gotten one till now, and it comes in a crown jewel event, the Southern 500. And it comes on a night where he wasn't the best guy. He just was the guy that limited the mistakes, and it's pretty interesting to see. It's the furthest back a winner at Darlington has come since Regan Smith won the Southern 500 in 2011, Kerry.
Wow.
And he started 18th. So, I mean,
crazy.
It doesn't seem like super far back, but at Darlington, it's really hard to pass. It's one of those tracks where you really don't want to get behind early on because, as we saw with a lot of guys, you get trapped a lap down very early, and it's very hard to get back out of it. So just worked his way up methodically throughout the early parts of the race and got where he needed to be and won this thing.
Wow. So
with the win, by the way.
Okay, here we go.
Hendrick's 299th victory all time for Hendrick Motorsports.
So one more
to 300. Yes, they're almost there. So they're closing in on it.
Why do I think they had more?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Low.
Well, I mean, like 2 years ago, they set the record at 269. So now we're at 299. So they're clicking them off pretty quickly here.
Yeah, I just thought they had more under their belt, but okay.
Well, that's the most of all time. So
who am I? What am I to say?
What's a team got to do to impress Kerry Murphy?
That's right. That's not enough. That's tiny. That's
299. That's all.
That's right, exactly. Come on, step it up.
They've got Richard Petty wins plus another 100. They've almost got Petty plus Pearson.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, well, and I think the thing that really goes undersold here with Hendrick Motorsports is the team only started in '84, so it's not a team that's been around since the '70s or the '60s or even before that. You know what I mean? So like, I don't think we truly appreciate how much they've done in such a short amount of time they've done it. 1984 is incredible. They've accomplished almost 300 wins since then.
Yeah. All right. If you say so.
All right. Also, by the way, if you're wanting a bigger, impressive, more all-encompassing total, Kerry, you ready for this?
Okay, sure.
This win was the 500th victory in the Cup Series for Hendrick engines. So there you go.
Oh, man, I thought it was more.
That is a substantial portion of Cup Series races in history.
Really? That's all?
That's it? Man.
I could have done better. I'm up there in my garage building engines.
Of course. Oh my God, I can only imagine how those would turn out.
Yeah, probably not very reliable, I'm guessing. So we've got Kansas coming up this weekend. We've got to get Rowdy Dragon in on the show. He's dancing around in the back again. He wants to get in. Put me in, coach. So who are we to stop him? So let's get into Rowdy Dragon Fantasy NASCAR for this weekend at Kansas.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Rowdy Dragon back again with this week's Final Lap Weekly Fantasy Update. So how'd you do over there at the Lady in Black? Well, let's check out our stage leaders and see who we got. For your first stage leader at Darlington, our current points leader, Larson, 2023. Going to be kind of tough catching him if he keeps that up. Your second stage goes to Matt, 1121. And this week's winner, The Breen Room, with 247 points, 66 stage points. Max on the day was 263. Not bad, just a bit off there. Good job. All right, looking at Rowdy, Toby, and Kerry. Rowdy, I finished in the 26th place this weekend, currently sitting 6th in the overall league standings. Toby Christie finished in P130, currently sitting in the 80th spot. Kerry Murphy, Jimmy is back. Rough day for him, finishing in 203rd, currently sitting in the 127th spot in the league. You're not going to be able to catch Toby that way, Kerry. Okay, looking at our generous sponsors, Joe Bike. He came in 71st this weekend, currently sitting in 23rd. Louisville Max, tough go for him, finishing 172nd, currently sitting in 14th. Devin, DL Racing King, 11, finished in the 62nd spot and is currently sitting 130th. And David, Wolfie Dragonfly, finished in the 25th spot, besting us all this week, currently sitting in P27 in the league. Okay, taking a look at this week's driver picks. We've got 3 good ones, starting with the 5 car of Kyle Larson. He's got 17 races run at the track with an average finish of 13.5. He's got 6 top 5 finishes, finishing up there in 35% of his runs, 9 top 10 finishes, finishing in the top 10 in 53% of his runs. He's got 540 laps led at the track with 1 win to his credit. Looking at his stage point picture, Kyle has picked up stage points in 15 out of 22 tries, 3 of those being stage wins. Looking at Larson's loop data from the spring race had him ranked as one of the best. He had the 5th best average running position, 3rd best driver rating, putting up the 2nd most fastest laps on the day, while leading the most laps at 31.84%. In terms of speed, Kyle ranked 3rd in total speed ranking, coming in 3rd in green flag speed, and was 2nd fastest late in a run, lending to his 2nd place finish. Looking at the high speed tracks, total speed rankings put Larson in 4th. The team has momentum coming off of their win in Darlington. You should highly consider this team for your lineup for Sunday's race. Our second driver to look at for this week is the 11 car of Denny Hamlin. Yes, we're going to put him up there again. He's got 30 races run at the track with an average finish of 12.9. He's got 12 top 5 finishes, finishing up in the top 5 in 40% of his runs. He's got 13 top 10 finishes, finishing in the top 10 in 43% of his runs. Then he's got 383 laps led at the track with 4 wins to his credit. Looking at his stage point picture, has him collecting stage points in 19 out of 26 tries, 4 of those being stage wins. Looking back at the last 8 races, Denny has had 4 podium finishes and 3 of them were wins. During this period, he has the best average finish as well as the most points earned. In the spring, Denny put up some of the best loop data stats, coming P1 in average running position, P1 in driver rating. He was fastest early as well as fastest late in a run, and Denny put up the most fastest laps at 23%. He was also fastest on restarts and had the best green flag speed on the day, spending 98.9% of his laps in the top 15. Looking to Hamlin's speed rankings on all high-speed intermediates this season, ranks him 2nd with an average speed rank of 3.75. I think this team feels like a win got away from them last weekend and will be pushing to punch their ticket into the next round on Sunday. All right, our final driver to look at is the 19 car Martin Truex Jr. He's got 30 races run at the track with an average finish of 12.1. He's finished in the top 5 10 times, averaging 33% up there in the top 5. He's got 17 top 10 finishes, finishing up in the top 10 in 57% of his runs. Laps led has him at 906, and he has 2 wins at the track. Looking at Martin's stage point picture, has him collecting stage points in 15 out of 26 tries. No stage wins, which is quite surprising to me, but he's been close a couple of times. Over the last 13 starts at Kansas, Truex has been an elite performer, finishing only outside of the top 10 one time, collecting 2 trophies on his way. Truex's loop data from the spring race also shows he was running well, as he ranked 2nd in average running position. He had the 2nd best driver rating, and in terms of speed, he ran 2nd fastest early and was 3rd fastest late in a run, also running 3rd most fastest laps on the day while running 2nd in green flag speed. He matched the 11 car, running top 15 for 98.9% of the race as well. while leading the second most laps on the day. Looking at his speed rankings from earlier this season, ranks Truex second, and on high-speed intermediates, Truex tops the charts with an average speed rank of 2.75. That team will be looking to make up some ground after a rough run at Darlington and should be considered for your lineup on Sunday. Now let's take a look back at last week where Kerry and Toby posed some good questions and the scenarios played out almost as they proposed. Eric Jones turned out to be a decent pick after qualifying 20th. He ran up the field to finish higher in points than Hamlin, who took both stages. Good call, Toby. Truex qualified horribly, and he was not even considered for my lineup whatsoever. There was no way he was going to collect any stage points in the first stage, so I sat him out. Let's have a look at a similar scenario where the 5 team qualified 18th and the 24 qualified 23rd. I thought it was a bit of a stretch to keep the 24 in my lineup. Trying to work his way into the top 10 for the first stage would be a bit of a pull for him. The 5 car, however, showed pretty much the best practice speeds, and I saw him working his way up into the top 10 with 115 laps to work with, and that warranted a spot in my garage. It's important to look at those practice speeds before setting up your lineups. Qualifying does not set the stage. However, track position has been a factor in this next-gen car. All right, guys, the playoffs have started. Now we've got 2 players to run down. Currently, the playoffs point leader is the Breen Room, and your current points leader and regular season champ is Larson 2023. Good luck running those 2 down, folks. All right, before I head out, I want to invite you over to Rowdy Dragon's NASCAR Fantasy Sportsbook. Come on over, have a listen over at TobyChristieCom, breaking down those head-to-head matchups to try to get you through to the next week without pulling all your hair out. Come on over, give it a listen. All right, guys, that's all I got for you for today. So as usual, thanks for hanging out and listening to the Final Lap Weekly Fantasy segment of the show. I am Rowdy Dragon. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right. Thank you once again to Rowdy Dragon for joining us on the show and doing his fantasy NASCAR expertise stuff.
Stuff.
All right. The biggest news headline in the last month or so, I would guess. I can't think of anything bigger. Denny Hamlin finally has decided, yeah, I guess I'll stick around and get paid a lot of money from Joe Gibbs.
That was the choice, huh?
Well, I mean, his other choice is go work for himself for free, basically.
Well, I don't think it would have been for free. I think there's still sponsorship and earnings to be had, but you know.
Sure, but probably not Joe Gibbs money.
No, not many monies out there are Joe Gibbs money, I would think.
I mean, if you had the choice, you might as well work for a big team and use that money and funnel it into your own team, right?
I mean, it makes sense. Plus, when you think about things, I mean, I kept hearing the rumor, and I kept hearing people say there was a real offer on the table from Ford. And sure, I'm sure Ford wanted 2311. But for Denny Hamlin, for Michael Jordan, it just makes no sense. You've got such a strong tie there, and you've shown performance. You've got both cars in the playoffs. You're a very young team still. I think changing manufacturers at this point just didn't make sense. Ultimately, I think that the deal from Ford was more of a posturing move to secure other terms they were wanting overall in the overall Toyota deal. Which I don't know if that's what was accomplished here. I don't know if they ended up conceding other things that they were wanting. I don't know.
Well, and doesn't Toyota want more cars on the racetrack as well? So they kind of
obviously, yeah. So that was the whole thing. They even added Legacy Motor Club for next year, and it was like, okay, now they're going to be bumping up to. You can't lose 2 after bumping up 2.
Right.
So that was the thing. It just for the balance of power in the sport, you've got to have a little bit more equal playing ground as far as how many cars are in each one of these manufacturers. Toyota was not going to let them leave. And
they've already lost to Kyle Busch.
For sure. And for them, it doesn't make sense for 2311 to leave, I don't think. Even though they were toying with the notion of it, I don't think that they would have honestly moved.
So they've lost to Kyle Busch. They potentially could lose Truex after next year. You know, you really want to lose a Hamlin? I mean, you're running out of superstars.
Right. I mean, that is the risk you take. And at some point, are these big names that you've lost insurmountable? Is it something you can't come back from?
Right.
You got to remember, this is a team that also had Bobby Labonte, Tony Stewart. I mean, there are a lot of big names that have come through Joe Gibbs Racing's doors. Dale Jarrett comes to mind. They let him go off to other things, and he ended up winning a championship with Robert Yates back in '99 as well. So there's a lot of different drivers that have come through there that have done great things with the organization, and then have also done great things after they left the organization as well. Tony Stewart won a title after he left too. So it's one of those things where it's really a catch-22 when you've got this kind of talent driving for you. And it's one of those things where you got to figure out what you want to do if you're Joe Gibbs. But I guarantee you, he did not want Denny Hamlin not returning to his team next year. I do believe everything we were hearing there, that Denny wanted to come back and that Joe wanted him back. It was just, did it make sense for the 2311 portion of things? And ultimately, I don't think Toyota was going to not let it make sense for 2311 to stay.
Yeah. Looking at more headlines over there at TobyChristie.com, Daniel Hemrick to finish the rest of the season in the 10 car for Kaulig Racing in the Xfinity Series. That's pretty big.
That is. So the reason moving him from the 11 to the 10 is because the 10 is locked into the owner points. The 11 will not be locked in unless it wins a race. So they have a chance to win an owner's championship, and they feel their best effort at that would be to move Daniel Hemrick, the full-time guy in the 11, over to the 10, while they try out young guys like Derek Kraus in the 11 for the remainder of the year. So, I mean, you got to respect the move. It's kind of a big brain move when you think about it. I don't know. You look at the scope of things and you go, well, the one guy wasn't good enough to get the other car in the owner's title. Why do they think he's the guy that can get us an owner title with this?
Right. Well, he's a champion.
Exactly. We've seen Hemrick be a guy that can win a championship. And he had a lot of bad luck early in this season, too. As long as he doesn't run into trouble on the track, Daniel Hemrick will probably get you a top 10 on most weeks. So I do think, and I kind of agree with him, he is the best option to get them a title. It's just kind of weird from an optics standpoint to see things changing.
Nobody likes change.
No, they fear
it. Right. What else we got going on over at your website, TobyChristie.com?
Man, we've got a few things there. We've got. Have you seen the 11 student athletes that will be on the number 6 Xfinity car this week for JD Motorsports?
No, that sounds cool.
Yeah, they've reached a partnership with the University of Kansas and a couple companies here. We've got B1 Sports. And we've also got, Mass Street Collective have kind of done this thing where they're helping these college athletes kind of build their brands through things like this. And it's really, really cool. So a lot of student athletes from the University of Kansas will be adorning this vehicle throughout the weekend. So we'll see how well it does. But that's really, really cool to see for Brennan Poole and the JD Motorsports team. I think it's first of its kind. I don't think I've seen college athletes on the side of a race car yet. I've seen college universities and stuff like that, but I've never seen the actual athletes on the car, so that's pretty cool.
Okay. Seems to me that would have happened already.
I mean, you would have thought, but with all the rules,
I thought Hendrick Motorsports had more wins though. So.
With all the rules in the NCAA, though, players weren't allowed to use their likenesses and make money off their likenesses and stuff like that up until I think this year. So that's why you're kind of seeing it for the first time. It's kind of cool to see. We've also got, Carson Kvapil, the son of former Truck Series champion Travis Kvapil, who's been really cutting his teeth and making a name for himself in the Cars Tour ranks. He'll be making his Truck Series debut at Bristol next week, Kerry, and the number 7 for Spire Motorsports. Really, really cool to see. Well-deserved, by the way, and it'll be interesting to see how he does at the NASCAR National Series level for sure.
Definitely. Very cool.
How about this? We are fans of the Bloomin' Onion too, right?
A little bit, yeah.
We do. We partake in a lot of those when they are hanging around in the sport. We love it. Outback Steakhouse will be partnering with Stephen Malazzi in the number 22 AM racing entry at Bristol in the Truck Series next week as well. Really, really cool to see. And it's an interesting story because Malazzi, this is only going to be his 5th start in the Truck Series, right? And he's a guy that's very young, doesn't have much of a background in racing. So it's kind of interesting he's even where he's at right now. But he's also, in his spare time when he's not racing cars, he's a server at Outback. So it's really interesting to see. So he parlayed this. He ran Martinsville for the team, got home at like 3 a.m. and literally went back to work at Outback the next day, tweeted about it. An executive for the company saw it, and that kind of sparked the sponsorship opportunity. And now Outback will be on the 22 truck with Stephen Malazzi, who, if you've kind of followed TobyChristieCom, you probably know Stephen. He's done some writing for us in the past. He does a memoir that he's currently putting together on our site. He's got 4 chapters right now. Really cool dude, and really cool to see for him this opportunity.
So if he wins, is his tip based on the purse money he wins, the 20% on that, or how does that work?
I was saying that they should probably put in the contract that they'll continue sponsoring him, but he has to keep working as a server the whole time.
Right. Wow. All right. Well, there you go. News of the week from TobyChristie.com. Let's get into Kansas Speedway this weekend, race number 28 of 36, or Playoff race number 2 of 3 in this first round. Up for grabs, $8.8 million. And of course, you too, or the driver could, whoever wins, get launched into the next round of the playoffs, just like Kyle Larson did.
This is a good point. It's a very, very dangerous thing to think about, that you could be catapulted into the sky. So
they really should have that in victory lane.
They should. I mean, I think about it. Even if they put like a little stuffed animal version of the driver, I think that'd be funny.
That would be. Get launched into the next round. There you go. This is a 1.5-mile oval, banking up to 20 degrees. The front stretch is 2,685 feet, back stretch 2,207. Cup race 267 laps, 400.5 miles. Stage 1, 80 laps. Stage 2, 85 laps. And the final stage weighing in at 102 laps. Last year's pole sitter was Tyler Reddick, and last year's winner was Bubba Wallace.
Ooh, there you go. So I think, telling you, the people calling for Bubba Wallace to be out in this round are misguided for sure.
Misguided. I like that. You had to get that word in today, right?
That was the goal. Yes.
All right. So you get scratch that one off.
Done.
Misguided. I mean, you make a strong case. He finishes top 10 last week. He won this particular race last year, and he's strong at Bristol. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe next round for those that don't want him to advance.
Yeah, I mean, he's just too good at this racetrack. The team's too good. Toyota's too good at this racetrack. I just, even if he doesn't win this week, he's going to build enough points where he's going to go to Bristol. And as long as something treacherous doesn't happen to him, he usually has decent speed there as well. I don't see it. I don't see Bubba Wallace not advancing to the next round. By the way, Kerry, so you talked about how 500 wins for the Hendrick Motor Department didn't seem like a lot, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So 500 wins since 1984. There's only been 1,305 Cup Series races since 1984.
Okay.
So well, I mean, that's pretty good.
You say so.
It's 38.3% that a Hendrick Motor has won a Cup race since then.
If you think that's good and stuff, sure.
Not good enough for Kerry Murphy.
What do we got looking ahead to Kansas this weekend? Is it the usual suspects there at the top? You got your Byrons, you got your now Chris Buschers, Larsons, Reddicks.
Man, that's the thing. I mean, there's so many of them now. It's hard to count anybody out. And you look at guys like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. People are counting him out. He came into this race this week, had an early pit road speeding penalty. It was like, well, there goes his chances. He's done. He went down a lap, right?
Right.
Ended up in a 5-minute period, went from a lap down to earning a stage point. I mean, I don't know how they pulled that off. They got it done. And then after that stage was over, went towards the back again, and it looked like, okay, they're kind of done again. They ended up working their way back up and got a 16th place finish out of it. I don't think you can count anybody out of this thing that's in the playoffs right now. They're really all really, really good.
Is this right? I have in my notes Bubba Wallace is below the cut line. How did that happen?
Is it? If so, it's got to be like by 2 or 3 points over Logano or something, right?
How could that be? Is it must have been throughout the season or racking up points, and he didn't?
Yeah, because he goes in with no playoff points, so he didn't get any stage wins, no race wins. So each round he will begin at a deficit. But I'm telling you, there's no way that he doesn't advance. I just don't see
I'm just saying there's people yelling at you because, hey, he's below the cut line.
They can yell at me all they want. I'm going to be the one that's right at the end of this round.
Okay. All right.
Now, round of 12, that's where things get a little more interesting. But for sure, he's making it through the round of 16. I guarantee it.
Yeah, he is definitely below the cut line. Also, Kevin Harvick, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Michael McDowell, if you wanted to. Yeah, Bubba Wallace is 1 point out.
Okay, so, I mean, he's right there. And he goes into a track. I mean, he's probably licking his chops going into this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And what else Kevin we got? Harvick, that's a bummer, too, because he's, like, been on the verge of winning so many times this year. And this past week, it looked like for sure, there it is. Harvick's going to punch his ticket to the next round. Here it goes. Him and Rodney Childers have found it again. And then just weird circumstances take him out of it. So we'll see if they can bounce back. That's mentally fatiguing when you have stuff like that happen. So how can they bounce back from something like that the week after?
I don't know. So let's take a look at the last few race winners. And Denny Hamlin's on the list. He won earlier this year. Then you got Bubba Wallace last year. Kurt Busch not racing anymore. Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano. So, I mean, it's the usual suspects doing well at Kansas.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a good car at Kansas. You got to have speed down the straightaways. You got to have handling in the turns. You got to have good aerodynamics at these 1.5 miles as well. It's gonna take a really good driver to win. You're not gonna have a weird fluke that pops up there and does it. I honestly, I see a Busch or Keselowski win. They're so good right now. I would be surprised if one of them doesn't either play into the finish of whoever ends up winning, or are the guys that win this race.
All right. I think we're done, aren't we? That was a lot we packed in there.
We did. We got a lot in there. But yes, Bubba Wallace will advance through this round. You book it right now. Put it in there. If it doesn't happen, I look like an idiot. But I'm saying he does it.
All right. Don't make Toby look like an idiot. That would be
seriously, Bubba, come on. It wouldn't be the first time somebody's made me look like an idiot, though, so it's okay.
Yeah. Checkered flag is flying on this show. This has been the Final Lap Weekly. Catch us next week right here when we will recap the racing at Kansas and preview a little short track we like to call Bristol Motor Speedway. I think others call it that too, though. And all the stories in between. Toby, you and I will chat next week.
We will.
Time to, list our current Patreon paying people. Patreon.com/The Final Lap. And I got an email from Lalo.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We've been saying his name wrong, and he sent me a YouTube video, and I didn't listen to it. Let's see what it says. Maybe I can just play it here. Oh, there's an ad. You get the list going, and I'll see how you say Lalo. Lalo? I'm curious now. Lalo.
Lalo. Okay.
It's Lalo.
Oh, okay. Well,
all right.
Maybe I'll have to adjust the way I say it. I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
Been like decades too that we've been saying it that way.
I know. I feel bad now. Uh-oh.
All right. Well, thank you for the pronunciation. That helps.
Yes, thank you. Lalo. Okay, there we go. So there it is.
Yep. Hopefully we can remember that now. That's a whole other story.
That is. Holy crap. So thank you. Seriously. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you for everything and for letting us know how to pronounce your name. That's great. So
yeah.
Let's go through the list. Kerry, you ready for this?
I am.
We've got Devin over there, one of our sponsors. We've got Louisville Max, our other sponsor, David Letchworth and Joe Bike, our 4 sponsors of the show. We mentioned them at the top. We'll mention them again. And then we've got Lalo. We just talked about him right there. So thank you. Awesome.
Boom.
Boom. Right out of the gate there. We've got Robert Keene, Jimmy B, Mr. Jimmy James, 1983. Thank you, Jimmy. We've got Quentin Whitaker, my buddy from Daytona. Super awesome dude. We've got Simon Green from across the pond. Troy Clark from Down Under. I'm sure he's watching in anticipation of Shane Van Gisbergen showing up and whooping up on all the Americans, right?
Is he scheduled to race anymore?
Not this year, but next year.
Okay.
Sure he'll be back. So we've got Peter
Been waiting a while.
Yeah, he's it is what it is. David Reed, we've got James Maples II, Evan Taylor, Mike Hamilton, Nick Reed, Scott Clark, Justin Kapasenskis. If there's anybody who's just pumping his fist in the air about what happened at Darlington, it's Justin Kapasenskis. Huge Kyle Larson fan. And we've got Charles K. Miller, longtime listener of the show, longest tenured listener of the show that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I think he was listening since before Kerry even decided to make it a show.
Yeah, here's some money, is what he said.
Here it is. Figure it out.
Exactly. We're still trying.
And that completes our list of Patreon folks. Thank you so much. Seriously. Back to you, Kerry.
All right. Getting ready for Kansas this weekend. And, of course, you can join in on the giving fun at patreon.com/The Final Lap. I think we out of here. Yeah?
We out.
Boom.